What is democracy? Black men are being killed in the street.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
What is democracy?
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot.
Liar! Liar! Liar!
Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally.
Commencement addresses everywhere are almost always boring and amount to word salad. However, not on this occasion, because what Harrison Butker had to say at Benedict College absolutely set the internet ablaze. I hope to show you today not only how important what he had to say is, but the reaction to what he had to say. And that it shows us that we are living in an anti-truth culture, but more importantly, a culture that is fundamentally anti-Christian. We'll talk about that and more today on Indie Thinker. Welcome to the show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. My name is Reed Huberman, and I am giving away a free gift to you for being an email subscriber this month. Our free gift this month is the ebook, 10 Commandments of Progressive Christianity. Now, this is a fantastic book. If you want to take your indie thinking journey to the next level and do it on a subject that I think is eminently relevant, then all you need to do is sign up for our newsletter by going to the link that's on the screen or going to the description of this podcast where you can sign up for that. That's your one-stop shop for Indie Thinker exclusives and extras. Now, not only will you gain access to that book, but you'll obviously gain access to the newsletter, and you'll see things like our trailer for our brand new film that's currently in production called Fatherless. And while you're there, you can also help us support that film and the work that we do here at Indie Thinker. So again, all you have to do that is go to the description of this podcast or go to the link on the screen and sign up for our newsletter. Unless you've been asleep for the last 20 to 25 years, you can easily agree with the fact that there is an anti-Christian bias. But because I'm intellectually honest, I would say, fine. In the marketplace of ideas, replace Christianity with something better. By all means, if you can, please try. This is where G.K. Chesterton's fence comes into play. If you put a fence up, you should ask, why is it up before you remove it? If you do not know why that fence was put up in the first place, you have no business removing it. But this is the culture we live in. A bunch of radicals, or what might be called immature rebels, want to rail against the system and destroy it without even understanding it or how it has benefited them, how history in the past has taught us lessons that have caught up with us in the present, and how it has produced the culture that we now live in. These radicals are bent on an ideology that wants revolution at all costs, even if it cuts off their nose to spite their face. Introducing you to progressivism. Progressivism has been winning in our country and pushing for their gay agenda, their socialist agenda, their anti-human agenda, and as a result, people are more depressed, more suicidal, more nervous, and less happy than they've ever been. The birth rate has dropped below replacement. College campuses are hives of support for terrorist activity, and the feminist agenda has fully produced a group of women who can't even define what a woman is anymore. These kids, in other words, are totally delusional. And now we're placing them on puberty blockers in order to protect them from the dangers of their natural biology. Gay porn is being promoted in elementary schools, and God, worst of all, Taylor Swift is popular. With all of that going on, one might think Christianity could be of some benefit, but it has not stopped a lot of people from suggesting that Christianity is actually the problem with society. There is no better representation of how malign Christianity is in society today than what took place when Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, took the stage at Benedict College to give a Catholic message to a group of Catholic students at a Catholic university. And here's what he had to say.
For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
So that's it. That's what caused the internet to absolutely flip out and lose their mind last week. Harrison Butker speaking his truth, being his authentic self, tears in his eyes no less, saying that one of the most fulfilling things his wife has ever done is to be a homemaker, to educate his kids. And it has blessed his family so much to have that. And he suggests the crazy idea that your work doesn't have to be the place where you get your most fulfillment, that seeking that raise necessarily won't bring you anything other than more money, but it's not going to be the thing that fills your heart with purpose and meaning. Now, as unobjectionable as that is, what you have to remember is that we live in an absolutely insane society. And so now let me introduce you to the upside down world of responses that came as a result of Butker's speech. First, I want to take you to the NFL because the NFL had a statement after Butker's speech because they wanted to speak strongly out against this man and his clearly unobjectionable views that women, one of the most important things, not the only thing they're allowed to do, but one of the most important things they will do is to be a mother. So the NFL wanted to come out clear and clean the record to make sure that there's no mistake that that kind of stuff will not be tolerated in the NFL. So they said this: his views are not those of the NFL as an organization. The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger. Apparently not the inclusion of a Christian speaking obvious truth. Now, let me be really clear about the NFL and its past record. Let me take you to maybe just one individual in particular, Mr. Tyreek Hill. Now, you might not really know much about Tyreek Hill because, oddly enough, the NFL hasn't released a statement about the man who they're apparently very inclusive of, who has most recently tackled a plus-size OnlyFans model and broke her leg and is now being sued by this person. So just, by the way, word to the wise, if you're going to be an OnlyFans model, don't, and certainly don't be plus size, because typically when you fall, not great for the hips and the legs. Beyond that, Tyreek Hill also has gotten in trouble in the past for arguing with his wife, where he allegedly bullied her, threatened her, and verbally abused her while smashing an unlit cigar in her face during an incident. And even before that, he pled guilty to punching and choking his pregnant girlfriend. Now, real quick, before we go any further, I would like for you to hear the NFL's comments about Tyreek Hill and his continued poor behavior toward women. Powerful and not hypocritical whatsoever. Let's just say the NFL has an amazing track record of caring about the welfare of women. Now, it wasn't just the NFL that had something to say about Butker's speech, but it was also the city of Kansas, because on their X account, they posted the personal address of Harrison Butker, just in case you wanted to send him some great love notes. Maybe tell him how much you appreciate his stance for truth. I'm sure that was the intention of those who were over the Kansas City X account. Now, beyond that, probably one of the most vocal group of haters on the internet who had something to say about Butker are the people that I would call the whatabouters. Those are the people who wanted to compare Colin Kaepernick with Harrison Butker. So conservatives had a lot to say about what Colin Kaepernick said, and they were all up in arms about that. And then, of course, the whatabouters were quick to come out and say, well, what about your complaints about Colin Kaepernick when he was out there and he was voicing his opinion and taking a knee for Black Lives Matter? You guys were all up in arms, and you said he needs to just shut up and play football. The shut up and dribble kind of thing with LeBron. Well, let me tell you something about the whatabouters. They have a little bit of problem with what I'll call comparison, which a lot of my pastor friends today say comparison is the thief of joy. So you don't want to engage in that. But the problem with comparison can be quickly illustrated this way. Let me show you. So here is an orange, and here is an apple. So the problem with whatabouters is that they don't know the difference between these two things. When they look at this orange, even though it's orange and the name is named after the color, they can't tell the difference between this Granny Smith apple. This tart and semi-sweet, very firm fruit, as opposed to this very sweet and very soft, citrusy flavored fruit. They can't tell the difference between these two things. So let me help you, for those of you who have a problem with comparisons and engaging in whataboutism. The clear difference between Colin Kaepernick and what he was saying about race in America and Harrison Butker is as follows. Simply put, the difference between Butker and a LeBron or a Colin Kaepernick is that what Butker said is undoubtedly true, and what these men are saying is absolutely false. So no matter how big your platform is or how much notoriety you have, the moment you start lying to the public, that ability starts to dwindle away very quick, because nobody likes liars. And if there is anybody who recently told society, our culture, a lie, it's Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick equated the combine to the slave market. That's right. People who are on their way to million-dollar contracts and simply proving their athletic ability so that teams know whether or not they have the chops to make it in the NFL, that is just like being raped and being forcibly taken to a plantation where you then have to work the rest of your life for free, for nothing. And you have to stay there and live under horrible, deplorable conditions. I bet you didn't know this, but that mansion the vast majority of NFL players live in, or the very nice house, at the very least, is basically slave quarters. Even for you white guys who also go to the combine and do the exact same thing as black guys who go to the combine. Needless to say, he went further and suggested that obviously the NFL is modern day slavery. That's right. Colin Kaepernick having the ability to complain about making millions of dollars for being basically useless while he's sitting there signing Nike contracts and becoming increasingly irrelevant in the sports world, has the right to complain about the slavery that he has endured. So obviously, the real point here is that what Butker said is true, and what Colin and what LeBron says is not true at all. Now, there is one final group that absolutely lost their mind with Butker's speech, and that was feminists online, because Butker made this one offhand comment about Taylor Swift.
Because as my teammate's girlfriend says, familiarity breeds contempt.
First and foremost, let me just tell you something, that Butker was not trying to be irreverent to the holy and revered and most eminent Taylor Swift. He was making a joke. He was being ironic. He was actually leaning into the fact that Taylor Swift is incredibly popular, one of the most popular and well-known people on the planet. That's why he was saying my teammate's girlfriend. So he was being ironic and actually paying homage to how popular this woman is. But for those feminists that absolutely flipped out and thought that this was toxic masculinity on display, the problem with religion, and in particular Christianity, and the way it oppresses women, let me remind you that Butker is Catholic, and there's a group of people who forego child rearing and homemaking in order to pursue calling in the Catholic Church. Now, the name is escaping me for a minute, but maybe you Swifties can help me out here. What is the name of a Catholic woman who commits her life to Christ and to calling and is willing to sacrifice family? Yeah, they're called nuns. Nuns. So actually, within the realm of the church, there are people who are willing to commit themselves to a calling outside of the home. So the Catholic faith makes room for that kind of stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter because Butker is not suggesting that this is the only thing a woman can do. The reason I bring up all of these insane reactions in the first place is to just tell you this. When a society ceases to be good, it will cease to exist. When a man can't get up and tell you that his wife has gotten a lot of pleasure and fulfillment in life by being a homemaker without getting the insane ridicule by a large group of people who are not just anti-truth, but also anti-Christian, there's something wrong with our society, something deeply sick. When the only kind of bigotry that can be tolerated in society is that which is aimed at Christians, we should be very alarmed by that. And I'm convinced because of that the biggest threat to America today doesn't have anything to do with China or Russia or any foreign power. It has to do actually with something that's going on internally with us. That if we do not reclaim virtue and ethics, something that will hold us together, something that we can agree upon, then we will splinter so far apart that we become ripe for whatever foreign power wants to come in, which ultimately means that we are our own worst enemy. And this is what C.S. Lewis talks about in his book, The Abolition of Man. He says this: "We make men without chess and expect of them virtue and enterprise. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful." What C.S. Lewis is trying to paint the picture of there is the coming onslaught of moral relativism. In other words, a society that doesn't believe in objective moral values. If you do you becomes the name of the game, we will totally create an absurd reality. And he was way before his time on this because we're living in this right now. Essentially, he says this: a man without a chest is a man without virtue. It's a man that has a stomach and a man that has a head. So it's cerebral man and visceral man. And the problem with that kind of man is that cerebral man can tell you the what. It can define for you what something is. And then visceral man, the man of the stomach, can tell you the why. Because it feels good, because it's pleasurable, because you desire it. That's what the stomach is. It's the place of pleasure. But it can never give you this important final thing. If we should do something. Should we do it? Is it right if we do it? If all we have is our appetites and our mind, we're never being held together and tethered to a reality that makes sense by virtue of virtue. Let me give you a modern day kind of analogy here. So in the intellectual world, we have gender ideology that questions whether or not men and women actually exist anymore, and whether or not that penis between your legs is actually just a social construct. In fact, they say femininity and masculinity are nothing more than social constructs. There's no truth underneath any of it. Boys can play with girls and put on dresses just as much as girls can get butch haircuts and play with cars. There's nothing at the end of the day underneath any of the gender roles in society. There's no objective truth to them. Anyway, so gender ideology is this school of thought that has permeated the academy and is perfectly ridiculous. But then there's also appetite that goes along with that school of thought, which says if, by the way, you think that men and women are malleable and there is no real difference between them anyway, and everything is a social construct, there is no such thing as reality, it's only what we perceive. If you take that perfectly insane postmodern idea and put it within the realm of desire, well then why not? Chop off your junk. If you have dysphoria and it will give you a pleasurable experience that they promise it will, then why not? Follow your passions, follow your desire. There will be no repercussions to it. And of course, the problem is that there are. We never discuss if we should do something or if something is right today. We often discuss what and if it will make us feel better. And then that's enough for us. This is modern man and the abolition of man, as C.S. Lewis calls it. And the problem with this is it's perfectly creating an immoral society that is patently absurd. Now, I know what you may be thinking. I mean, that stuff about the virgin birth and the crucifixion and atonement through what Jesus did on the cross and then Jesus raising from the dead. If there's anything absurd in society, it's certainly that. That's an absurd belief. Oh, really? Well, let me introduce you to modern leftism, where gender ideology tells you that men and women don't exist, as I already mentioned. But then also, let me introduce you to critical race theory, where the only way to cure past discrimination is present discrimination. So you have to be racist against white people in order to kind of just balance things out. And so we need to return to a kind of segregation. That's the only way to really claim civil rights and to reclaim civil rights in America. So as you can tell, if you want to venture into the absurd, venture far into the left of modern America, and you will find things that are so vastly ridiculous and way more absurd than anything Christianity has come up with, then it might be time for you to just recognize something. Secularism has no basis for objective moral values. Only a theistic worldview does. And once you jump into a theistic worldview, you have to ask yourself which one. And when you finally answer that question, you'll come to the realization that what Butker said in his speech, especially about Pride Month and getting rid of it, is not just good and moral, but true. And our society would be less absurd if instead of raging against him, we actually believed it. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go with God.